The first major boy band of the late 90s was the Backstreet Boys, who took the world by storm. The Backstreet Boys have sold over 100 million records worldwide, making them the best-selling boy band of all time. Maroon 5 surged to fame during 2001 and has sold more than 135 million records. Their song, Moves Like Jagger, is the second most downloaded song of all time. Winners of 6 Grammys out of 17 nominations, the jazz, R&B, soul, funk, disco, pop, Latin, and Afro pop band put out 22 albums and sold over 90 million records worldwide. The Bee Gees gave the world one of the greatest movie soundtracks of all time, Saturday Night Fever. The Bee Gees are also a symbol of the disco movement of the 1970s. Originally an alternative hip-hop group, they subsequently refashioned themselves as a more marketable pop-rap act. While the group changed singers from Fergie to J. Ray Soul during the height of their popularity, the Black Eyed Peas have produced 9 albums. The hippie band of the late 60s was defined by their vocal harmonies, adolescent-oriented lyrics, and musical ingenuity. The Beach Boys are one of the most influential acts of the rock era. One of the best new wave bands of all time, Duran Duran were one of the first bands to truly embrace the music video. No one who was young in the 1980s can have a playlist that doesn't include Duran Duran. Maybe the greatest rock band of all time, the Rolling Stones have stood the test of time and continue to rock well into their 80s. The Jackson Brothers, especially Michael, wowed the world in the 1970s. From classic songs to being on lunchboxes, the Jackson 5 were everywhere. Eventually Michael Jackson would break away and become the greatest act of all time. One of the most influential bands from the 2000s until today, from Clocks to Viva La Vida, Coldplay have become one of, if not the biggest act in the world. The colorful and experimental band has put out 9 very successful albums. During the 2010s, One Direction ruled the world, and with a fanatical following the band rose to the top of main music attractions. As of 2020, the band have sold a total of 70 million records worldwide. The Temptations were one of the premier acts of Motown Records and had hit after hit for more than during the 60s and 70s. The Temptations are among the most successful groups in popular music. The girl power band the Spice Girls had a bit of everything for everyone and laid the groundwork for all the boy and girl bands that would follow. At the height of their fame, the Spice Girls had an almost Beatles mania, even producing their own movie Just Like a Hard Day's Night. In the late 90s, NSYNC was everywhere. The boy band was on posters at TRL, and their songs were all over the radio. Chris Kirkpatrick, J.C. Chasez, Justin Timberlake, Lance Bass, and Joey Fatone were all household names as the band sold millions of records worldwide. The Swedish pop band would provide some of the best hits of the 70s and 80s. Their greatest hits album is a must-have for any music lover. The rock and roll and doo-wop band that had Frankie Valli as the lead singer was a major force in the 1960s and 1970s. They are one of the best-selling musical groups of all time, having sold an estimated 100 million records worldwide. The Beatles' rip-off television series band actually became very popular and put out albums and earned a place for themselves among the most popular pop bands of all time. The Monkees put out 13 albums which have sold worldwide. The trio became world famous with songs such as Bills, 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 and Say My Name, would eventually go on to sell over 60 million albums worldwide. Destiny's Child was nominated for 14 Grammy Awards, winning twice for Best R&B Performance by a Duo or Group with Vocals and once for Best R&B Song. One of the first modern-day pop bands on the list, Take That as a dance pop, pop rock, and pop band. The band has produced 9 albums and will tour in 2024. The Supremes were a premier act of Motown Records during the 1960s. The R&B, soul, and pop band would become one of the best vocal bands of all time with 12 #1 singles on the Billboard Hot 100. New Kids on the Block enjoyed success in the late 1980s and early 1990s and have sold more than 80 million records worldwide. They were the template used by many managers and labels to produce the boy band boom of the late 1990s. A band made for a showman in the late great Freddie Mercury was just that, the perfect showman. one of the greatest bands of all time with maybe the greatest lead singer of all time. The band that featured Sting would become one of the most popular pop bands in the world with their mix of punk, reggae, and jazz. The Fab Four defined music in many ways that no band has ever been able to replicate. Everyone has been chasing the Beatles ever since, but there is only one. The Beatles. Fleetwood Mac has some legendary tracks like Secondhand News, Dreams, and Never Going Back Again. They were one of the most influential bands of the 1960s and 1970s.